Hey, winner. Welcome to Red Hot Mindset. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are well into the new year, and I have a special guest for you today. Maybe you're like me, and in every job or role you've held, you have felt something missing, or you've just longed to have something that's your own. I've only ever known working odd jobs and multiple of them as my husband and I navigated our way through early adulthood and parenthood. My most stable and longest lasting job was in the restaurant, where I started as a host and I worked my way up to restaurant management, which actually was a fancy way of saying, I'll pay you for 40 hours, but you'll work for 60 plus, and we will own your schedule and your time. Don't get me wrong, I actually loved what I did. I think a part of me thrives in the chaos and fast paced environment that a restaurant brings, but something was missing. I wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I felt God had another calling on my life. If that's you today, listen in, because my guest today is going to bring the fire and share her story of leaving a very stable corporate career to build her own business and inspire others to do the same. You can find joy right where you're at in whatever season or job you are in, and you're called to do that. If you are in a season of motherhood, embrace that gift. If you are in a season as a working mom, be intentional with the time you have and be an example in your workplace and home. Learn to live joyfully wherever you are and work to get where you feel God is leading you next. Lisa Williams is an Alaska girl born and raised, married with 3 kids. She's a lifelong learner, loves to travel, and sings in a praise band. She was blessed with a successful recruiting career for more than 27 years, but eventually took the advice she had given countless others and went on a journey to find her passion and what she would do next in life. Through that journey, Lisa entered the world of business builders and entrepreneurs. She has taken the skills she mastered in corporate America and has shifted to helping others find their true passions and business pursuits. Lisa is an entre-believer, wealth mentor, and chief inspiration officer at Lisa Williams Co., creator of the Perfect Side Gigs program. Throughout her years in the corporate career, she was blessed with financial freedom and reached a net worth of nearly $2 million. Lisa's goal is to empower, equip, and inspire 1 million to hire themselves. The mission at Lisa Williams Co. is to bring joy and passion to people's lives through the principles of business building and entrepreneurship. One of her many whys is that her children will never have an employee mindset. They'll be lifelong learners and continue to find the next version of themselves. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hey, Lisa, I am so excited to have you join us on Red Hot Mindset, and I'm really excited to dive into your story. I think that my audience is really going to love hearing your dream come true story.
Thanks, Gabe. I'm so happy to be here. We have so much fun together.
Oh my goodness, we do. And honestly, we just met recently. We're both a part of an anthology that is coming out. It might be out already, but it's coming out pretty soon here. It's with the Lemonade Stand. It's called the Lemonade Stand. And we share struggle victory stories in there and different lessons that we learned. And so it's a really, really fun way to glean wisdom from multiple different women in different journeys of life in different age groups and different everything. And so we come together and we collaborated on this, and it's been really, really great. So it's been so fun to get to know you, Lisa, because I feel like we've known each other for a long time, because I feel like we have some kindred spirit in there. We both have some of the same values and same type of missions in inspiring and impacting others. And so I just love that. I love that. I love making these connections and networking online. And it's cool that we can do that.
Absolutely. Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we dive in, can you just share a little bit about you? Maybe a little about your family and where you come from?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, Alaska girl, born and raised back in, I'm almost 50, so a long time ago. Have 3 amazing kiddos. I have a blended family, which I am so blessed to co-manage with my husband and my ex-husband and his wife, where we've managed to craft this crazy blended family, which is wonderful. And I was an employee for a really long time in the wonderful profession of recruiting, made a wonderful living for myself and my family, and found myself at a time of transition about 3 years ago. So, hired myself about 3 years ago now, and now we're on a mission to help others do the same.
I love it. I love it. There's so many places we could go with our stories because you
I
have
know.
some
I
true
know.
struggle victory stories. We might
Yeah.
have to do it again sometime, but
Yeah.
because there's just so many facets so many paths we could go down. Today, we're going to talk about your corporate career and
Okay.
transitioning into owning your own dream job. And I love this because I think there's so many people out there, especially some of my listeners, who probably have that in the back of their mind that they want to own their own time, their own career, and have just the reins and the choices that it brings. And so I think that they are going to really be impacted by it. Can you share just a little bit about your corporate background? What did you do? You were in corporate for 25 or 27 years. And
Yep, almost 27.
yeah,
Yep.
you had a
And
successful career.
yep, yep. I did, I landed quite by accident, like I find most people do. There's so few people that I think are actually fortunate to really have an idea of what they want to do from graduation from college or high school. I was a psychology major, had this degree and didn't know what to do with it. So just started applying for opportunities and moved to California and was looking for a job. I'm dating myself a bit. This was back in like 93 and it was the days of the yellow pages, and I went to a temp agency, and I was looking to help them have them help me find a job. And they wanted me to take a typing test, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do you any good there, but I want to know what you do." And that kind of just started it. A couple hours later, I landed my first job in recruiting, and for those recruiters out there, you know what I mean. It's one of those roles that most people don't even really know about, but if you try it and you love it, it gets in your blood, and it's just a wonderful way to make an impact on other people's lives, make a great living for your family. I mean, I was fortunate to make multiple six figures the bulk of my career. And, how cool you have a job where you're helping others find a job, right?
Mhm.
Well, fast forward, through that transition, I had 19 bosses in 23 years at my last firm. So you know how it is when you have a new boss; it's like a whole new agenda. So there's that. I also, with the economy changing, I had my income cut in half 3 times. I was 100% commission the majority of my career. So that part I really loved because I've always loved not having like a cap on what I could make, right?
Mhm.
Not That's not for everyone, but for those that can embrace that mindset, I would so encourage you to do so because it just gives you a lot more freedom. Um, but this last time, my income was cut due to a client kind of changing priorities, and that had been someone I've worked with for a really long time. And it was kind of like I was starting over again, and I was just like not really loving it. And so just started exploring what I would do next and started saying yes to a whole bunch of things, and accidentally landed in a side gig that I fell in love with in the financial education space. It's a passion I've always had since I was a single mom and had to really get get a very clear picture on my finances many years ago. Um, and from there, I just completely immersed myself in this crazy world of entrepreneurship that I really knew nothing about. And since then, now we have our company is all about, I've simply switched from recruiting for a job to I'm a business matchmaker, and I help people identify truly what their gifts are, what they're meant to do with those gifts. I find so many of us are not using our gifts to our fullest potential. I certainly wasn't myself. And a lot of people are on this like corporate hamster wheel of life. I was certainly on that hamster wheel, and I wasn't really giving a great example to my kids any longer. When it comes to, I believe that God uses all of us to, you know, commune with others and create opportunities for connections with others. And I had kind of stopped doing that a little bit. So yeah, I really just, when I do anything, I kind of dive in feet first, and I've been going crazy since then. So
I love it.
um So our company is, it really is a combination of business coaching, business strategy, marketing, and then right now we partner with 10 companies that all represent home-based business opportunities for families. And our goal is really to help families transition from that employee mindset to kind of entrepreneur mindset, having additional income streams so that they can really create their own stimulus check, if you will.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. And I think it's really neat because you kind of walk people through um, the discovery portion and really wanting to cater it because sometimes people will just start a business because they think it's going to be what's best or it'll make the money or whatnot, but then they don't find the joy in it or the fulfillment. And I think there's something to say about having both. And we're not always going to enjoy our job. There's going to be things about it we don't like.
Right.
I don't like administration kinds of things. Like making
Yeah.
show notes for this podcast is like, I don't like doing it. We'll just call it that. But I love being able to share people's stories. I love doing these interviews. I love writing. And so most of it is a passion, but you can find joy in anything
Mhm.
you do. And I just love that. Now, as far as your journey, did you kind of have that idea right away when you said, I'm gonna jump in and hire myself? Or was it a process? How
No,
long
it
was
was
that process?
definitely, yeah, definitely an iterative process. My the first business I started, I really embraced it fully, and I probably put maybe 10 to 12 hours a week initially. I was working full time. I have 3 kiddos. My mom actually got sick shortly after I started my side gig, and so I guess my point was I didn't have a lot of time. So for maybe people that are thinking, well, how can I possibly fit something else in? I didn't have a lot of time, but what I had a deeper desire for was I was tired of having a boss. I was tired of having a new boss every year. I was tired of having my income dictated by market conditions or a client. I really wanted to really have more control, and I knew that if um, uh, I knew that if I carved out and I created space now in my life to fit this in, that eventually it would pay me, you know, continue to pay me in the future, and would create that time and money freedom that I so craved. So I think for that's one thing. It's definitely been iterative. It
Mhm.
took me about a year and a half to leave my corporate job, but I was very purposeful about it. I gave myself a goal and a target. And I think with anything, if you're brilliant at this, Gabe, like if you give yourself a goal and they're smart goals and they're measurable and you're consistent and persistent with it, there's no reason you can't accomplish it. Um, it's funny as time has gone on, and now we're approaching 3 years. I find it interesting because so many people, I think they want the life that entrepreneurs have,
Mhm.
or at least they think they have, but they aren't necessarily willing to put the time in that others are willing to put in. And so I think I just ask people, think about your life today. If you want it to be different and you don't do anything, what's it going to look like in 12 months from now? Right. So finding and creating space, now I'm full time. And I was just thinking this weekend, I absolutely, I absolutely love Mondays. I love Tuesdays. I love every single day because I don't feel like I'm working. I feel
Mhm.
like I'm doing exactly what I was meant to do. And I love helping others find that too.
I love that. And I think that's important. So, and I think what I hear you say in the fact that it's a process and that what you thought you were going to be doing is not what you're doing at all, but now you love what you're doing. It's kind of, I think a lot of people are scared of the entrepreneurial path because plan A usually doesn't work out. It's never plan
Hmm.
A that's going to get you there. You have to learn how to shift and keep moving until you find what works and what works for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people quit at plan A. If that doesn't pan out, it's like, "Oh, well, that wasn't meant to be." Well, that's not
Right.
true. Nothing comes without hard work. So I think it's cool that you were willing to shift and pivot until you found that direction and that passion.
Yeah. There's this, one of the things that I've loved most is that I really, really believe really the only thing I'm doing is I'm just working purposely on becoming the better version of me.
Mhm.
And I'm helping others do that. I was like, honestly, I realized looking back now, I can't even believe all the things that I've accomplished um, through the grace of God. Truly, I owe it all to Him, and I'm excited and I'm proud of that. And I was thinking the other day when I was in corporate for so long, I was considered one of the top 10% of $1 billion firm. I was, by all intents and purposes, you would have thought, you know, this girl's got it made, and I did in a lot of ways. And yet I couldn't remember the last time I learned something new or felt true joy in what I was doing. And more importantly, the clients that I was serving, they were coming to me looking to find a job, but I felt like they were actually wanting to be something new, you know? And so it's just such a cool, thing that God does where I really believe that there's things that we're meant to do in our lives, and He's been preparing me my whole life for this business. And I don't know what it's going to look like this time next year. Who knows? But I'm excited to find out. And I'm not afraid. And that's one thing I just so encourage people, don't be afraid. Think about the when you first graduated from college. You didn't know what the heck you were doing. You weren't fearful then. I mean, some people are, but I certainly wasn't. I didn't know what I was doing. I just jumped in and I learned it, and then it became old hat.
Yeah, exactly. It's true, and I think the fear comes in the unknown. But you know what? In
Mhm.
order to have something good, we have to step into the unknown. But we have it, and knowing that God is right there, guiding every step if we're willing to just listen and do
Mhm.
what He calls us to do. We're never going to know the next step until we get where He wants us, and then He'll show us the next step, right? And so it's kind of
Yeah.
that progression. It's a stepping stone progression. I love that you call yourself an I can't even say it, entre-believer, right? And
Yeah.
I'm guessing that
Yeah.
means that you're intertwining your faith with your business. And I love that because I do the same. Can you just share a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of my favorite things about having my own business is my faith has always been the driver in my life. Since I was a little girl, mom and dad, they just gave me such an amazing example of being faithful followers, and forgiveness has always been a big part. A lot of lessons I've learned in life have been around forgiveness. um, and just an example of that, in corporate America, you really are not encouraged to talk about your faith.
Mm.
And it's in some ways you can get in trouble if you talk about it. Now that has evolved over time. By the end of my tenure in corporate, I actually was leading a Bible study, at various times in my corporate life. But I guess what I love most about what I do now is I really believe that entrepreneurs are the hands of God. I really believe that innovation in our world because of people that think outside the box and aren't afraid to take risks. I never, by the way, ever dreamed of having my own business. Never dreamed. I didn't even couldn't even spell entrepreneur. Did, didn't go to all these self improvement things. So I'm saying, like, I'm almost 50, so it doesn't matter how old you are. I think it matters. Really ask yourself: am I truly, if I die tomorrow, will I be truly using the gifts, all of the gifts that God meant for me to use? And if the answer is no, then start exploring what might be next. And for me, that's been one of my favorite parts is intertwining my faith. The people that I work with, that I partner with in business, it's very much a pillar of our company. The pillars of our firm are faith, family, finance, and philanthropy. I love to give back. I love to help nonprofits find ways to increase their revenue stream that's not traditional. Um, and I just think there's so many ways that we can be followers of Jesus. And by the way, I do believe more people that are good people need to make more money. We didn't. I I have this mentor in business. She's so funny. She her name's Laura Langmeyer, and she has this comment she always makes that cracks me up. She's like, Christopher Columbus did not discover this great country so we could be a bunch of employees and live paycheck to paycheck.
Right, right.
We started as a country of entrepreneurs, and now we're 90% employees. And 90% of employees, in my opinion, because of my own personal experience, I can speak with authority on this, that are living life way less than they're meant to live.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and entrepreneurship, it's almost the whole idea of it is that you are serving someone else and you are helping solve someone else's problem. So
Yeah.
your eyes are off yourself. And I think that's really important because the best way to give is to give to someone, right? And best way to
Hmm.
be blessed is to give. And when we give of our time and we give of our gifts, because really we're just sharing our gifts with the world, we are doing a service for people. And I think
Absolutely.
beautiful because when we are an employee, we're just working for someone, right? And it's not, we can feel like, oh, well, we're not, what does it matter? But when you're doing something that solves a problem and you really get it, then it really does matter. And I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And the other beauty is the financial side. You can make as little or as much as you want. And I think good people with money do good things. Because I'm always thinking about if I had a lot of money, I don't need a fancy house, but I would love to be able to give it, and just think about different causes and different places I can put it. And I think that's entrepreneurship and that capitalism, the American dream is the small business. The American dream is that. And what can you do when you accomplish that dream, right?
Well, and I think, I mean, for me, one of the biggest differences that I've experienced is in corporate. Um, there's a lot of guidelines, a lot of restrictions, a lot of meetings about meetings to make sure we address the meeting, and not always necessarily like what is truly moving our business forward. Whatever your business, whether it's sales or help, serving others or service business or whatever. And I find in the world of business building, it's a lot more. It's required me to raise my thinking.
Mhm.
It's required me to stretch myself. It's required me to be uncomfortable, which that's when I grow. That's when I grow the most. And that's when you think about humans. That's when we've all grown the most. Is when we were little and we were falling down and we were getting up. And imagine telling your toddler, "Oh, just stay down if you fall," right? And
Right.
I think as our society has grown, I find too many people are like falling down and they're not getting up again, right? I think it's brilliant how many of our millennials, for example, they're not staying at a job for very long. They're trying new things. They're not necessarily doing what's traditional. I have my oldest is in college right now. He's in his third year, and I'll tell you, personally, I don't see that his education has changed much since I was in college.
Hmm.
And I think it's a travesty how much our kids are graduating with student loan debt and not necessarily getting those jobs that pay what they need to pay that debt back, you know?
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. It's funny, like had you asked me, 3 years ago, what if your kid came to you and said, "Mama, I don't think I'm ready for college." What would you say? I would have been like freaked out. But now if that happened, I have a senior in high school. Honestly, if I'm kind of preparing myself for that because I've
Mhm.
I've given him a new example partly. So
Yeah.
I can't be contradictory to myself now if that happens, right?
Yeah, well, totally. And my mindset is completely different than it was when I went to school too. And so, a lot of people, because I'm a homeschool mom, and a lot of homeschool moms still cater to getting them prepped for college. And
Right.
that's not the first thing in my mind. My mind,
Mhm.
yes, if they need to go to college for whatever they choose to do, that's fine, or if they choose to go. But my mind is I'm prepping them for life, and I'm prepping them
Mhm.
to have an entrepreneur mindset, or just to have have critical thinking and really understand how to think. And so then they can, like, I think one of your things is to be lifelong learners. And that's the thing. If you know how to learn, you can learn anything. And
Yeah.
you are so much more valuable than if you're learning to pass a test to go to school and get an
Mhm.
education, right? And so,
I heard something the other day. One of my guests on my podcast, her name's Deb Erickson. Wonderful woman. She has this whole neuro training that she does for business owners and salespeople. And she said something that struck me, and it was like, people think about going to college and they obtain their degree as though it's something that once you've obtained it, okay, that's it. I've obtained it, as opposed to really what we should be all thinking is, gosh, I mean, how can I continue to obtain knowledge?
yeah.
And a great example of that, I've counseled so many people in corporate in transition, and I can't tell you how many times people would come to me. They had been going for a promotion, right? And they didn't get it.
Hmm.
And so they go and get an MBA, and they spend 50 grand or more on an MBA program. And then they still don't get their promotion. The best advice I could say people should do is take a mindset program
Yeah.
like Gabe or I offer. Put your, the mindset shift that's so required of building another income stream, having, passive residual income. It's gonna get you so much more than that $50,000 MBA that may or may not help you get that promotion that you're looking for.
Yes. The mindset is huge because if you
Mhm.
aren't ready mentally, you're not going to physically be there, and so
Right.
mindset is huge. And mental training and toughness isn't just in exercise, it's in
No.
everyday life, right? We have to train ourselves to be patient, we have to train
Mhm.
ourselves to forgive, to let down our pride, we have to train ourselves for a lot of things. And for promotions, to become that leader, we train our mind to do that. And
Mhm.
I think that is honestly what I've learned in my past 15 years of just leadership training. I've learned so much more than I did in school in my education.
Isn't it funny? I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's really the school of hard knocks. You really are, what better way to then just entrench yourself and have kind of that student teaching of life?
Yep, it's like the
Absolutely.
apprenticeship, right? So somebody who went before
Mhm.
you is teaching you and training you, and you still make your own mistakes because that's the best way to learn.
Mhm.
But it's getting up from those mistakes. Are you tough enough to do that and get back up and get
Yeah.
up many times as you need to? And I love that you are setting the example for your kids, and that's one of your passions. That you teach them to be lifelong learners, to have entrepreneurial spirits. Why is this really important to you? And what are some ways that you're modeling it for them?
Yeah. So it's important to me for a lot of reasons. One is that I I was given this amazing example of a woman and my mother. She was one of those fortunate souls that she knew from 9 years old she wanted to be a nurse,
Mm.
and she was a nurse for 50 years. And she got sick shortly after I started my business. My mom was my biggest cheerleader. There was nothing. She was that mom that, I was a gymnast growing up, and I was not like your sons. I was not very good, but I but I was a really good teammate, and I was a great cheerleader for my team. And my mom was at every meet, and she would always just tell me, "Honey, you were the best." And I knew in her mind I was, right? And so I have this amazing example of this woman that just poured so much belief into me my whole life. And when she passed a year and a half ago now, I remember the last time I saw her, I was laying, um, oh, sorry, I'm not going to cry. Um, I was laying on the bed with her, and my mom had a brain tumor, and she struggled to speak the last 10 months of her life, which was so hard because that was how we spoke every day, right? But I remember this moment of clarity that she had that day, and she just looked at me and she's like, "Honey, I have no regrets,
Mm.
and I'm ready for heaven." And it was so profound, and I've told that to people quite often since. And every time I tell it, I feel like I'm not only honoring my mom, but I'm honoring the woman that God wants me to be.
Mm.
And I'm giving my kids the example of what they can do, right? It's funny. I had a family reunion on Zoom yesterday, and I know my whole family thinks I'm crazy right now because I've been like in the traditional corporate world forever. I make a fabulous living. Like, why on earth would I leave that? And I can't explain it any other way that I am just so filled with joy every single day that I wake up since I've made this choice. Am I afraid sometimes? Absolutely. Am I concerned that, money when you first get started, as you know, as a business owner, it's not flowing, in through your doors, right? But I planned for it. I planned purposely. I have a husband that's just an amazing, support system. And so I can't even remember the question now, but I think I feel like, do you feel like, did I answer what you were,
Oh,
what
right.
you were
We were just,
asking?
yeah, we were talking about how you model it for your kids. And really, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it really is just, there's this book that I read. I can't remember the author, but it's so good. It's Everything is Figure Outable.
Oh, yeah.
And
Or Marie Forleo, right?
yes, yes, yes. And it's so true. I mean, like, what's your alternative?
Hmm.
So, my reunion with my family, we all kind of went around the room, and so many of them just didn't really, they weren't that excited about life. And they were kind of just existing. That's like abhorrent to me now. But I understand it because I was there not too long ago myself, you know.
Right.
Right. So I don't want to ever be in that situation again. And I'm going to continue to do what I need to do to make sure that doesn't happen. Right.
Yes, I love it. And I just think when you are where you know you're passionate and where you know you're being called, you will be blessed. God
Hmm.
always provides. So we're not always going to get what we want. We're not always going to grow as fast as we want, but God will always provide and he will always meet
Yep.
us where we are if we are in his will, which is the best place to be. Right. And so
Yep.
we're called to move, we move.
We're
And
called, and you and I talked about this. I'm not just a follower. I'm not a fan of Jesus. I'm a disciple. And if that is true, then I need to be doing what he's calling me to do. And I wasn't.
yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we I think we can put ourselves in a box because we're like, well, we're good
Mhm.
at that. People have told us our whole lives that that's what we should do or
Yep.
whatever it is it's for the title. Like a corporate recruiter, that sounds pretty cool, right? And
Hmm.
so we could be doing all these things, but we're doing them for the wrong reasons. And then when we decide, you know what, that's not where I want to be, that's not where I'm supposed to be, and we move, then that is
Hmm.
us being a disciple. That is us showing, the love of God really through us being not scared of the future, not scared of the unknown, and being
Hmm.
willing to do what we think we're called to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we don't have too much time left, but I want to talk a little bit about some struggles that you've maybe encountered as you've been building and scaling your business. Would you be willing to share a struggle? It could be a mindset or a physical struggle or something that you encountered as you were growing, kind of maybe a wall that said, maybe I'm not supposed to do this, or maybe it's too hard, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the core principles that I've chosen to approach my business building is creating partnerships with
Mhm.
other like-minded people. And I think probably one of the biggest struggles that I face is that the majority of people, and myself included, we are very tied to the employee mindset of what, trading our time for money, right?
Mhm.
And I've always had other income streams. I've done more the traditional routes of, investment properties and various, investments in the market and things like that. But I never really actually even knew about the four cash flow quadrants and truly shifting your mind, and your assets to an area where you have a business that's truly producing an income for you. And so that was really that's taken the longest time,
Mm.
because even though I started down this road of, okay, I'm a business, owner now, and I'm no longer having someone else dictate what I'm worth and this and that, I didn't realize how much I relied on what other people thought of me
Yeah.
and my success, and giving up that, top 10% performer, I guess, title or whatever, to now I really have to prove myself all over again. And probably one of the hardest things is that the people that I know and love
Mhm.
haven't necessarily, they're not on the same journey as I am, you know? And so they don't understand me, and they don't they're not comfortable with it. And I understand that, but that's been really hard for me, because I thought I've learned a lot about my friendships through this time, and I've learned about the mindset of the people that I love, and it's nothing against them. It's just that it's been a really interesting discovery of who I thought really had my back and not sometimes doesn't necessarily,
Mhm.
but then at the same time, this amazing world of entrepreneurship, there are so many people that are like on the same journey. And it's such a world of just, yes, how can I help you? This abundance mindset, this, well, everything's figure outable. Of course we can do that. We just need to know how to do it, right? And let's work together. I love how many people in this world that I've met in the last 3 years. There's so much collaboration. You and I have done it, right? I love nothing more than helping build people and collaborating with others. It brings me so much joy. And I think that I was really lacking that in corporate. I really didn't even know I was.
Mhm. Yeah, and you're so good
Yeah.
at it. It is one of your giftings,
It is. It
being
is.
a leader
It
and
is.
the inspirer and collaborating. And I think that's one of the fun things about being an entrepreneur. You really do get to meet all different people from all different places and grow these friendships. I never knew you could grow a friendship online, really.
I know, right? Well, and it makes you, I really feel like I've turned on my dream machine again.
Mhm.
I hadn't realized that it had been dormant for so long.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, I've always been a goal setter, and I've always been, a high achiever. And I've always had these things that I thought were helping my kids be the same, but I had no idea how
Mhm.
much more there was available.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And honestly, God wants to give you desires. Like he wants to put those desires in us, but he wants us to use them. He doesn't want them just to
Mhm.
sit there. He wants us to explore them and to imagine and to use them. One, to serve others and to build his kingdom. I think that's what we
Yeah.
do as disciples, right? And so if we use them, if we don't use them, then we're like that, the parable of the tenant who just buried the coin, right? And
Yep.
that
Yep.
was the best way to do it. And he didn't invest it
Yeah.
or anything. He just didn't want to do anything wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a good point, and kind of one of the final things I'll share is that when you think about what you might face, if you decide to hire yourself and take that brave leap, another thing that I think every human experiences is the need for approval from others. And that is a very big problem in our society, certainly in our youth. But I've done a lot of study on this, and every single, mentorship program that I've done and coaching program, they talk about this. And
Mhm.
the idea that, think about how often do you make a decision for your life based on what other people may think. And the reality is, they're really not thinking about us because they're so caught up in their own things.
Yeah.
And so, boy, it's such an interesting topic. And it's such every day that I can purposely train my brain to just make decisions based on what I think, what I know God wants me to do, and it has nothing to do what others think or care about, right? Then I know that I'm doing better in what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, I think that is great advice to end our time on, because I think approval addiction is a huge thing, especially for women. We just
Hmm.
want to please. We're people pleasers. We want to make sure that what we're doing isn't going to step on toes and do things. And just like you said, they're not really thinking about you. If
They're
you say
not.
something wrong or you say something, you worry about it for a whole day or a week or month or whatever, and they forgot about it. They don't know. They don't remember. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're thinking about you.
And
They're
yet,
thinking about
I mean, there are people, a great example I've shared with you. I I was married and my husband was unfaithful, and he was unfaithful with a very good friend of mine.
it.
And I was blessed with forgiveness for both of them. And as a result of that, we have this crazy blended family now. And
Mm.
yet, guess what? There's been a lot of people in our lives that are not comfortable with how close we are.
Right.
How crazy is that?
Yeah,
You
like,
know,
you're forgiven,
we've forgiven,
why does
right?
it matter anymore, right?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
the I mean, God is a God of forgiveness, and He wants us
exactly.
to be, right? And honestly, that is part of the story that you share in the anthology, right?
It is. Yeah, my chapter is on the blessings that forgiveness has given my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys wanna hear more about that story, like I said, we have so many facets we could have gone through today. We just
Oh, I
picked one.
know.
But if you
Yeah.
wanna hear more about that, you're gonna have to pick up a copy of that anthology. It's good. It's so good. And there's so many life lessons within. But I have so enjoyed having you here, Lisa, and hearing about you taking that leap from corporate to hiring yourself, because I know it's a scary, scary leap, but it's worth it. Would you let us know where the best place is that listeners could go to connect with you? Because I have a feeling some will want to.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Go to lisawilliamsco.com. We have several different programs, including our Journey to Financial Freedom and our Perfect Side Gigs program. And then we have a new program that we're creating content for right now called our Dream Business Launch program. It's a 12-week series.
I love
Gabe was just a guest on our Wealth Minded Women series, which is so fun. And I also have a podcast. Gabe is a guest on mine. It's called Dream Big Nation podcast, and lots of other things. But lisawilliamsco.com, you can reach me at lisa@lisawilliamsco.com, and we'd love to connect with you however we can do and add value to your life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you, honey. I appreciate your time. So lovely chatting.
Wasn't that a great conversation? One of my biggest passions really lines up with Lisa's when it comes to helping my kids be lifelong learners as well, and to develop the mindset that they can do a job, they can be entrepreneurs, and they can do what they set their mind to do. If you become a lifelong learner, learning becomes easy and it becomes enjoyable. And then you can learn anything and you can have a joy in doing it. And so I hope you were blessed by this conversation. If you are interested in finding out about her program, the Side Gigs program, I will leave a link in the show notes for you so you can get easy access to it. Lisa has been a blessing in my life already, and I hope that she is in yours as well. In all things I pray, you just run your race. I believe in you.